Up until 1932, being gay was considered a crime. Gay people were treated as if they had a mental illness. They were forced to hide their relationships in fear of being arrested. One of, if not the most significant turning points in gay rights history, was the 1969 Stonewall riots. In the 1960s, police raidings of gay clubs in lower Manhattan was a common occurrence. On June 28, 1969, the gay community and local sympathizers stood up to the police. This is known as the Stonewall riots. To better understand this, I interviewed a man by the name of Tree. Currently working in the Stonewall Inn, Tree was a participant in the Stonewall riots. Tree has been interviewed over the years by various news agencies and is now active in the LGBT community. What was it like during the Stonewall riots, as far as the environment around you?
We were in here dancing, having time of our life when the cops came in the other side and everybody started screaming. And eventually when we broke out and stood outside, the cops were there, the paddy wagons and everything. The cops were barricaded in here. They were definitely afraid to leave the building. There were hundreds of people outside. We broke the windows, we broke the walls behind the windows. They pulled a parking meter out of the ground and used it as a battering ram to knock the doors in. The cops were in here. In here was a couple of lesbians in men's suits and men dressed as drag, a couple of bartenders, a couple of regular customers, and one of the owners, Vinny the Fat Tony. They all got stuck in here.
How determined was everybody as far as to not hide anymore from being gay?
I had to hide for years from my family, because my family's from Russia. My friend Sal was a bartender, and his mother found out he was gay, and she said she had no more son. My son is dead. I never spoke to him again.
Wow.
And that was the 50s. Nowadays, I love it when people come in and they go, "This is my mom." They bring their moms for drinks. Years ago, that would never happen.
Some people still look at being gay as a bad thing. Why do you think that is?
Because they have no sense. Because it's drummed into their head that homosexuality is wrong. In the old days, it was a disease. Anybody that was gay, lesbian, or a man was sick. We were a disease. It wasn't until years later when they found out we were born that way. It's part of life. The police commissioner who raided this bar the night in 1969 apologized to the gay community before he died. Because he knew it was wrong that we were not sick. We're just like every other person.
Yeah.
Remember, there's millions of us all over the world.
You would get a lot of problems for being gay back during when you had to hide. Have you ever gotten any problems today for?
No.
Now the Stonewall is a monument. Barack Obama had acknowledged it.
Right.
Back then, the thought of this ever becoming anything was...
Oh, we never thought that. But we never knew. We thought that after the raid,
he's coming in. All this stuff is here.
And 1 year later, there was the gay pride
went
parade.
to go put a ticket in his car.
And we figured that would be the last
He's coming
parade.
back in.
And who knew
No,
that?
I'm gonna give
This
him
is
a
the
text message
47th year.
Yeah.
In 2 years, it'll be the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. And it'll be the 50th gay pride parade.
Wow, that's really amazing.
And who knew that in 1969 there would be all this?
As most people know, LGBT stands for lesbian, gays, bisexual, and transgender. The LGBT community has fought to have the same rights as heterosexual people, such as being allowed to adopt children, serve in the military, and marriage. Next, to better understand the married perspective, I interviewed longtime family friends Nancy and Eileen. Have you been gay or lesbian your whole life?
I have not. Nancy has.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know how you judge that, to tell you the truth, because you grow up with heterosexual parents and you live in a world, like I was born in 1953, and I lived in a world that all I saw were men and women together, and I just assumed that I would marry a man, which I did when I was 19. I married a man. And when I look back, I realized that was just part of my growing up.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I dated guys in high school and college, but,
It's
all
the
my
thing to
serious
do. You don't
relationships
really
with
think
women.
about it.
Yeah.
How do you think the youth should be introduced to same-sex relationships?
That's a good question.
I think it's part of it depends on how old the kids are in terms of who introduces them to that concept. Part of me thinks it should be their parents if they're young kids, but as kids get older, it's just part of the culture now. So I think it's there's less of a need to do introduction because it's, I think.
Well, how about the
more
kids in
socially
your life,
accepted.
like your nieces and nephews and your neighbors' your friends' kids and stuff? I told my niece when she was about 5, I think, that Nancy was my wife, and she could not wrap her brain around it. But now she's 7, and she's open to it. And I remember telling my little sisters when I was 30, I started dating a woman, and I told my sisters who were like 10 and 11, and my sister who was 10 said that it opened up a whole new world for her because she thought, oh, I could date women or I could date men, because you grow up thinking you only have one option, and there's a lot of options.
Yeah, my niece and nephew, when they were younger, my brother and his wife were like, well, we expect you to let them know. And I was like, I don't think that's my job. So it was a little weird trying to figure out in the family back then who would be the one to introduce them.
Some kids just get it too.
Yeah,
Other kids don't get it, but some kids get that you have like this special married type of relationship. They pick it up just from being around you.
Has being lesbian ever made things more difficult? If so, can you explain what? And this is like throughout life.
I'm 52 years old now, so when I first realized I liked women, or that I had feelings for women, I was in high school, and I went to Catholic school, and I was raised in a very Catholic environment. I had all told 19 years worth of Catholic education, so it was certainly very difficult to come to that self-realization and reconcile it with my religion, or the religion that I practiced at the time, because those two things don't work together. So I had many years of self-doubt and fighting what ultimately was, this is just me, and versus my religious teaching telling me this is bad, this is no good, this is evil, let's say, and coming to terms with that was a very, very difficult process, and it took a lot of years to learn how to love myself and realize that God made me too. And it's like a cliche phrase, but God doesn't make junk. So He made me to be this person, and I'm going to be happy as this person. So.
And even now, if we're in New York City and we're walking down the street, we hold hands. I would never hold Nancy's hand in Bayonne. We're not comfortable because it's a small town. I'm not sure if people are gay friendly. I don't want to bring the attention to us in case we get like a bad reaction from some stranger. So it does have long lasting effects.
Yeah, and there's definitely a fear of violence. If let's say if we were walking down the street holding hands, there's some places I'd worry about somebody hurting us.
And that doesn't even take into consideration what if we kissed each other in front of people who are anti-gay. It's just holding hands, which seems so non-threatening.
How long have you been together?
17 years.
And change, yeah.
Last August was 17 years.
How long have you been married?
As soon as it became legal in New Jersey, shortly thereafter we got married.
So it'll be 3 years this February, I think, that we're legally married.
We were together for 1 year, and we had like a private little ceremony.
Yeah, where we just
with each other,
vows with each other.
We said that we're going to be true to each other, that we love each other, and then shortly long time after that, we had a...
Yeah, then when it became legal to have a civil union in New Jersey, we did take advantage of that civil union law, and I think that was probably around 2006.
Probably, yeah.
That's about right. And so we did that.
And in our own minds, I think we were pretty much married early on. It just became official with jewelry later in our relationship.
Why was getting legally married important to you and your relationship?
Well, it's funny. Eileen is more of a child of the 60s, so for her I had to do a little convincing, because I think she was a little like, marriage is conventional, why do you want to do that?
I didn't get it. Why are we already together, why would we do this?
Yeah, but for me, it was about cementing the rights in the relationship, so that, God forbid, if anything should happen, I have the right to be at the hospital with her, or she has the right to be at the hospital with me. It's like those next of kin type issues that, we've had friends who've, had illnesses and have gone into the hospital and been denied access or denied information because they could, there was no way for them to say, I'm the next of kin, legally speaking. Then that's, hospitals or the one end of it. The other is taking advantage of all kinds of different legal benefits. Both, after we got legally married, I went on Eileen's health insurance at her job, which saved us a ton of money because I was paying for my health insurance through my job, separate and apart. Those don't sound very romantic, but I think ultimately, especially if you're going to stay together with somebody, those are really important things, and that's
to protect the things that you've built up.
Yeah, and that's, I don't think, any different for whether you're straight or you're gay. It's if you marry the right person and you're going to stay together, or you think you're going to stay together for the rest of your lives. That's what you do to protect one another.
Back in 1969, as a turbulent decade was winding down, the Stonewall Inn was a popular gathering place for New York City's LGBT community. At the time, being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender was considered obscene, illegal, even a mental illness. One night, police raided the bar and started arresting folks. Raids like these were nothing new, but this time the patrons had had enough, so they stood up and spoke out. The riots became protests. The protests became a movement. The movement ultimately became an integral part of America. So this week, I'm designating the Stonewall National Monument as the newest addition to America's national park system. Stonewall will be our first national monument to tell the story of the struggle for LGBT rights. I believe our national park should reflect the full story of our country, the richness and diversity and uniquely American spirit that has always defined us, that we are stronger together, that out of many, we are one.
Here we go. America the brave still fears what we don't know, and God loves all his children. It's somehow forgotten, but we paraphrase a book written 3,500 years ago. I don't know.
And I can't change